are live.
All right. Hey, everybody.
We'll give it
Welcome.
actually a minute because I'm not certain if it's live yet. It's saying
Okay.
it's redirecting.
Just give me your cue.
I got you. We are live on Facebook.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is Kelly Davidson with Kelly Maven Media, and welcome to Amplifying Your Brand through Earned Media, sponsored by Street Entrepreneurs and Pod TV Digital. I am going to talk to you today about how to get press coverage for your company. Most people, we kind of get into what PR is, what a publicist does, and all that kind of stuff. But our audience varies. We have people here selling products. We have people selling services. We have people doing advocacy and fundraising and things of that nature. And so I just want you guys to leave here with valuable tools that you actually can put into action once you're done with this webinar. I have some giveaways. I have some gifts for you. And I'd like you to hold your questions until the end. I'm going to try to give us about 15 minutes to dive into any questions that you may have, but we have a lot of material to cover, so I want to go ahead and get through all of that. So we titled this workshop webinar, Amplifying Your Brand Through Earned Media, for a very specific reason. That reason is, the slides won't move. Okay, here we go. So that reason is because I want people to get used to certain language so they understand what they're doing, or if they decide to work with a publicist, what they're asking that publicist to do. So earned media is media that you do not pay for. Advertisements are paid ads where you put something on social media and you pay for it, where you put an ad in a newspaper, or you put an ad on television, a commercial. Any of those things cost money. Earned media does not. When Fox 5 comes to cover your product launch, or if the Washington Post wants to know about your new album, those things are free. And it's earned basically through your story, making sure that story is newsworthy and that has value for an outlet. So we're going to start with the space of how to find journalists, how to reach out to them, who you should reach out to, and that sort of thing. So the first thing I tell people is, have a story. What do you want to promote? Because everybody thinks they need PR. And so I've sat down and had some consultation with people, and I'm like, you're not ready for that yet. But your brand is basically, what you want to cover, whether it's fundraising or advocacy or whatever it is. But it shouldn't just be about, this is my company here, come talk about it. There should be like an angle, a hook, something that's important about what you're doing. Are you launching a new product? Do you have a product that solves a problem that no one else solves? Do you have a service that solves a problem that no one else solves? Have you invented something that no one else has invented? Those sort of angles within your brand story are what's important to and what's newsworthy to audiences. And what's valuable to you is not the same thing that's valuable to a journalist, because it's a for-profit business, and they need people and on traffic coming to their websites and watching their shows. So your story has to draw in that traffic, and that's where they find value in your story. So just I'm going to zoom past the branding story and that piece, because I want to kind of get into certain things that you can do outside of your regular story to launch, to talk about with press. Connecting. Where can you find a journalist? Where can you find their contact information? So let's first think about what your brand, product, advocacy, or fundraising thing is all about. You want to find the journalist, the radio station, the print media that's covering that topic. You do not want to launch your new dog walking service and send your story into a crime reporter, because number one, they don't cover that. Number two, they're very likely, like 0.0001%, to send that on to the person who covers, launchings of new dog walking businesses. So we kind of think like, if I send it to the right person, they'll just send it where I need it to go. No, they're busy, and they want the stories that matter to them. And the other thing is this says that you don't even know who I am. So you're kind of just spamming people, and that actually turns a journalist off, because they want you to be an educated or informed person when you're reaching out to them. It saves everybody trouble. So the first thing you do is, when you're coming out with something that, your business, your product, your advocacy, or whatever it is, Go into news outlets and start to figure out who is writing about that thing, who's writing about your industry, who's writing about nonprofits and fundraising, who's writing about advocacy, who's writing about skincare and beauty. These things are broken down in press and in media. And so you need to find the right people, the right department to talk to. Follow those people, follow them on social media, on LinkedIn. And when I say follow, I do not mean stalk. I just mean follow, follow them, see what they're talking about, see what they're writing about, to see if they write about your industry. Once you've learned that, okay, this person is writing about what I'm talking about, this is the person that I need to talk to, begin to build your media list. Or you can create a favorites list on Twitter or save the things on Instagram. There's so many tools to save things, but I think it's better to pull that name out and put it in Excel, because when you do things like this, you work a muscle, number one. So that keeps you saying, okay, hey, it's a habit of keeping you organized and keeping you collecting those names. But make sure that you track them. Then, begin to follow, read about what they're doing. And here's the thing. We live in a something for nothing world in some spaces, that people feel entitled to your time, your space, and whatever. And we're not entitled to people's energy, services, or any of those things. And so I feel personally that you should approach someone and do something for them first before you ask them for something. That's a personal feeling. But I've also seen it work professionally. So if you are sharing, you're following these journalists, you're sharing the stories that they're writing, you're bringing traffic to their sites, give them a compliment, or if it's a criticism, make it nice, but if you read an article about something they wrote about and maybe you have a fact wrong, or maybe you have expounded information on that, tweet them and say, hey, I read that article that you recently wrote in the Washington Post. I thought it was amazing. I never knew that X, Y, and Z, if they informed you of something you never heard before, but talk to them like people. And then your name becomes familiar. And then when you start to email for pitches, you have a warm space. You've warmed the space up. You're not cold pitching to them anymore, because they have an idea of who you are. And they know that you have some value because you've done something for them. And because you can't pay them and things of that nature, but there's an exchange. And so, and one of those things too, if you have a product, if you're selling cupcakes or t-shirts and stuff like that, you can send that to them, but it is not to be used as a sort of bribe or something that, if I send you this, you'll cover my story. So this is how you can start to find journalists for free on social media. Oftentimes their emails addresses are in their bios and things of that nature. Start to build your email list. How you build that relationship? Like I said, resharing their things, bringing value to their platforms. So in this slide, if you take a picture or if you're taking notes, this is just reiterating what I'm saying to you. Go where they are. Less is more. Don't overdo it, paragraphs, and don't do too much. Say what you need to do and move along. And what you want is not really the point. If you're trying to basically do this just to get something, they can see that too. So you're doing this for them. Take yourself out of it. Now, once you've done that, you've got, you've warmed some things up, you have some email addresses, and you have a list going, and you're starting to launch, or you need coverage, or your event's coming up, and it's time to really start putting your package together. The pitch package involves a couple of things. This is going to look different depending on who you are, what you have, how far you are in your business and things of that nature. But these general components are very valuable and very necessary when reaching out to press, because again, I will reiterate, they are busy. Think about the emails you get on a daily basis. They may get between 50 to 100 or more of people asking them the same thing you're asking them. Can you cover my story? Can you come to my product launch, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And so you need to make this pitch package compelling, complete, efficient, and easy for them to get through. Because if you think that they're going to go to your website and start scrolling through pages to find the information that you're saying, that's likely not going to happen. So make it as easy as possible for them. The package, it involves an email introduction, in the body of the email. Not too long, not too short, but to the point. So you hear me talking, but I'm going to show you some proof of what some journalists have said about, some of the pitches that they get. A journalist who writes for various outlets, Wired, Forbes, Washington Post. She did top 5 things that should go into a pitch to a journalist, and kind of some of her gripes about what people have been sending out. And so she said, your pitch has to offer me value. Remember when I said that? Rather than explaining what the company does, why they're awesome, show me why their story will drive traffic to my article and resonate with my audience. So remember, if you have that dog walking company, your dog walking company is not going to resonate with the crime reporter's audience, because they're there for a specific purpose, and that's not their purpose. And so he says in this email, hi, Kendall. Blank company is planning a relaunch in August. As a tech website, I thought you might be interested in covering. For more information, check out our latest blog. And here's what she said about that. She said, this very, it's nice and short, but how would writing about this company benefit us? Why should I care about their relaunch? Tell me. Don't give me homework, because now she has to click on this link and figure out her story. I tell you, what has always worked for me is if I wrote the story. If I write the story with a catchy headline, oftentimes they'll just edit it a little bit, and then they have your story. Make it easy for them. And you see what she says on number 2. I just left a little bit in there just so you give you a hint. Don't beat around the bush. Don't fill up the email with fluff. Get to the point. And you could kind of start out the same way we talked about before. Maybe complimenting the other article, maybe complimenting the work that the platform does in general, or something like that. But don't just come in, hey, cover my story. You want to kind of finesse it a little bit. And make your email look like an email. So here, one thing you can't do with press is just send like bulk emails out. They'll see the BCC, they'll know, this is not a custom pitch, and most people won't look at that. The only time they kind of accept that bulk email interaction is when they get newswire releases, and they go to the wire to find things. But if you're just kind of spamming their inboxes, that's not a good look. So in this email, she could tell that it started out nice, it started out custom, and then he started copying, pasting things from another email with no even attempt to make the email look, genuine. And so that was a turnoff. It can be any little thing. I want to make sure that you know that. So in your email body, an introduction, a nice introduction, maybe something warm to the company, but then get to the point. Your company is having a relaunch because they just discovered, a new way to do an old service that is now changing results for clients by high percentages. That is why they might want to cover the story, not just because you're relaunching. That data point, it's helping people. And if it's helping people, it could help their audience. And they want to put out news and information that's helping their audience. So now we're all on the same page. You want to help people, and the people you can help are in their audience. So that's going to bring the traffic to their site. So you have your email, you're bringing up your very valid points, and in your closing, you want your call to action. What are you asking them to do? In this last paragraph, this person says, I'd love to see if we can work together to launch this video. And so that's a call to action, but it's kind of weak, because that benefits him. That could benefit the journalist if their audience is interested in it. But another way to kind of say that is, I'd love to know, I see that you guys have a need for people who will have an expertise in dog walking. And my client relaunching their new dog walking company with new leashes that have GPS tracking. So if your dog gets loose, they can be found. Okay, now, okay, so now, this is really compelling. Nobody else has this. My audience, the average for about 50% of the population has animals. Now this is showing more value than just, hey, help, let's just launch this. Show value. Now, once you have your email set up, nice, tight, all your pertinent information in there, the things that you want to attach to it. So have we heard of electronic press kits? Since I can't hear any feedback, I'm going to say, yeah, we've heard of electronic press kits. If we haven't, that's what it is. It's just a digital way to put all of the information and about your company, the press you've had in one place. Now, this is vital for some people, and some people can get away without having it. Because I mean, if you have a GM, a General Motors, and they want to get something done, people reach out to GM all the time. So if they didn't have a press kit, they'd be okay. But if you're an emerging company and people have never heard of you, and they kind of need a one-stop shop to find out who you are, what you offer, what you're all about, what other coverage you have, because that also can matter. Because if people say you've been in Forbes, you've been in Essence, you've been in Black Enterprise, you've been in Wired, then they're like, okay, this is they're newsworthy. Now, you may not always get a story from it, but people like receipts, don't they? And you prove your credibility that way. So this electronic press kit is basically a graphic package that has your who, what, when, where inside of it, one-stop shop. And it is very valuable if you're trying to get sponsorships and things like that. It's really good to have, because you don't have to update it often, and you can give it to anybody. It can work, it can work in any kind of setting for you. So keep that in mind. And find out if you're a musician, if you're an artist, you should definitely have a press kit, because it has samples of your work in it. You can put links to your music. If you're a photographer, they can see your photos. If you're like, here's a link to my photos over here, here's a link to my photos over here. Again, we're going back to that issue that we spoke about, where you're sending a journalist on a witch hunt to find all of your stuff, and they're just not going to do that. So you can put those links inside of that press kit, where they can download photos, listen or view your video, all inside of that. It can be saved as a PDF file. It can be uploaded to your website, or you can put it in a Google Drive where it's easily accessible for a journalist. Now, I get this question a lot. People ask me, do journalists still like press release? It's kind of one of those things where it depends, but it depends heavily on the yes side for the most part. Be over prepared than under prepared, because it's another nice way to have things packaged, because you'll be trying to explain all of these things that go in this press release inside the email. And then what do we have again? This long drawn out email that the journalist really doesn't want to read. Your email is the lead in for them to want to know more. And that the more is in your press release and in your press kit. So this is what I want to give you guys today. I didn't create this. I often purchase things from my PR peers, because this business is always evolving. There's new technology, there's all these kind of things. So I like to stay up on, what's going on. So I purchase books. I still read about everything to see what's going on. And so this might not be the only webinar you need to get your head wrapped around what this requires. I tell people, never stop learning. Get these newsletters. There's so many free jewels out there. Watch these webinars. You can really, really get your education through these avenues. So you might not know what to do with this press release when I give it to you. That's fine. Keep Googling to figure out if it's not clear through me. But the press release is a little bit of the story of your company, the purpose of what's being launched, what's being advertised, what's being promoted. It has the pertinent details, the partners involved, and again, it could have links to photos, because you may not have a press kit. But the press release is something that gets reprinted. So I'll tell you how that process works. When we talk about earned media is free. But newswires like PR Newswire, EIN Newswire, Black Newswire, they have niche newswires that, from different languages. They get very niche, however necessary you need it to be. But this system has access to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of journalists across all mediums of media. And you pay this cost. You pay PR Newswires on the higher side is about $500. EIN is an up and coming newswire service, trying to compete with PR Newswire. It's really great. They're about $250 for 5 newswires, for 5 press releases. So you can have a whole package and release things, throughout the year. But what happens is, once you send your well done, well written press release to them, they release it to their contacts, and that can go to thousands of people. Now, this is the only way I suggest a spamming, because it's almost that, but journalists are signed up for this. They know what they're going to get. And that is worth the money, because what you don't understand is oftentimes their outlets are just going to pick it up. I recently did a project with a nonprofit artist, and nonprofit, small budget, but we're going to make this happen. And so we sent out the press release, and while there were interviews on NPR, et cetera, et cetera. However, Washington City paper, district.com, a bunch of these very valuable and popular sites in DC picked up this press release. So that didn't require any custom pitching, sitting down, writing an email. They just reprinted the press release. So you want your press release to be well done, almost reading like an article, so that they don't have to do anything to it, and they say, hey, here we go. So we got reposted in 120 different media sites. Do you think you can do that just from sitting down from one pitch? That's not often done. You have to have like mega contacts for that to happen. But because of that news wire, it extends your work just much further than you're able to do. So you have the budget for that. I always suggest putting something out on the wire. Now, because this is all DIY, you're doing this yourself. It takes time to write a press release, and you may have to write it a couple of different times, but do that. Have someone else read it. Don't work in a vacuum. Even if it's not a publicist or a copy editor or someone in a professional field, and you feel like you have no one to put some eyes on that, ask someone to read it, to see if they would be interested in going to your launch or buying your product or service or donating to you based on what you wrote. It's okay to have, because that's what it's really about. Obviously you want it to be well written, the grammar to be correct, but does this appeal to anyone? So you can ask someone to get your own focus group going. So you got your email, you have your EPK, you have your press release, you have all of your pertinent details and all of this stuff. But before you close your email and send that off to your journalist, you have to make sure that you have your call to action, that is clear in your press release. You want people to come to your event, buy your product. It's clear in your email to that journalist what you want from them, because there's two call to actions that are going to be in this email. The one in your press release to your target audience, and the one in your email to the journalist who you're trying to get to cover you. So now once you send this off, I think one of the things that I kind of want to say, because there comes some training, when you're a publicist and you get used to things and you're doing things over and over again, the finesse, the human piece of that. Because once the email goes out, you want to give people a couple of days to get it. Give them a chance. I never follow up with anyone before 3 to 4 days, because that's just, I think it's a courtesy, especially when you think about the volume of emails a journalist might be getting. And so once I do one follow-up, if I don't hear anything, my max follow-up is 2. And then I'll wait 4 to 5 days after that. And then I don't follow up anymore, because at that point they've seen the emails, their lack of response is a no. Sometimes it hurts. It's okay. You're going to get a lot of no's. So steel yourself for that now, and figure out how you're going to absorb that so you can keep going. But never, ever do these things. Do not spam a journalist with bulk emails. Do not spam a journalist with tons of tags on social media. So you got your event flyer going and you're like, NBC, Fox, Channel 7, radio station. You're just, because they're going to see your stuff. They might see it and it might upset them, because you're not the only one doing it. You have to remember, there's a human piece here. Feelings and all that type of frustrations, that is the variable in public relations, because it's not just science, just not hard, straight facts. There's a human element, and you can turn people off. And I think that's one of the most important pieces that people don't understand about that when you're trying to build this relationship or get coverage or get people to partner with you and help you, that you have to remember the human element. So the only time I suggest, as far as tagging any type of outlets or anything, number one, don't tag the journalist personally. I don't think you should do that. If anything, tag the outlet, because they have people who have time set aside, or it's their job to look at this. If you're tagging a journalist on their personal social media, think about how that might make them feel. And so if you do this, make it the outlet. And also, I only recommend it for nonprofit activities or advocacy activities. I do not recommend that if you're selling minks and shoes and things of that nature. However, do what you want, but just I want to put that out there that it could turn people off and you might not get any coverage. But yeah, so the tagging, just be very careful with that. Do not make repeated follow-ups. They don't owe you anything. I said this before, and I'm going to say that again. Your story is only really important to you, the people who know you, etc. at that time. And it doesn't mean it's not important, but you have to remember where that value lies and who it really lies with. So if you have a feel-good story, I had a client that I work with who has a youth football team. And they are amazing. They have been winning championships for years, and they've never gotten covered in press. But beyond the championships, these little guys, I mean, there was a mentorship going on with them. There's community service. They're a family-oriented team. They do things for the community, for themselves. It's just it's beyond the field. And it brings you back to the value of group sports rather than just, getting out there winning and all this kind of bickering. The way that they are coaching these boys and leading these boys is just, it's really special to see. And if you see programs like that, they should have support, right? Because, people are sacrificing to coach and they're doing that stuff for free and they're out there with these kids. And so we felt like they deserved some support going on to their next championship. And we got a lot of no's about this story. And, parents were upset because they're like, we're working so hard, etc. And I'm like, I get it. That's why I'm working with you, because I believe in your story. But we did find some outlets who also believed in their story and showed up for them. But for them, everyone should have shown up for them because it was important to them. And I understand that. But as a publicist, I have to remind you that this is a for-profit business and it has to be important to them. So just keep that in mind, that what's important to you may not be important to them. So the repeated follow-ups, etc., it's just unnecessary. And at one point it becomes harassment. The other thing, as far as your story is concerned, building your brand story, whether it's you're telling your story about your product, you're telling your story about your advocacy, fundraising, whatever that story is, tell the truth. Do not lie to make it seem as if, this is newsworthy, because journalists fact check. Now, we know that there are a lot of outlets on the news. We see them in our timeline that just outlandish stories and things like that. Some of them are satire, but some people print bad news. And there was a time, where that was just so frowned upon. But, now it's happening. But just go with the idea that you will be fact checked. You shouldn't be lying anyway, but go with the idea that you will be fact checked. Tell the truth. There's a story about the Mass brothers who were chocolatiers, and they were kind of like having a great launch. They were getting really popular really fast. And then someone did somewhat investigative journalism. They got a tip and they followed the beans, the cocoa beans. I mean, they bragged about getting their beans from Venezuela, from all the beautiful places in the world. And all they were doing was melting down other people's chocolate bars and reselling them. How long did you think you were going to get away with that? And they were telling this amazing story about how they went to these regions that can't be reached on, by vehicle, and how hard it was to get these cocoa beans. They were melting down other people's chocolate. Not only were they lying about their story, but they were stealing. And someone found out, and Google that and find out what happened. So don't let that happen to you, because you could destroy everything you're trying to build and never have a chance to recover from that. So be honest. And that reminder is public relations involves relationship building. Consider how you would want to be treated if you were in the journalist's shoes. Okay. So, and finally, so that's the process for going through and pitching to journalists, pitching a story to get earned media. Now, here are some things. Now, that's DIY, doing that yourself, because you're not hiring a publicist, you're writing the email, the press release, and doing everything. But this is DIY. And this place is okay. Hey, say you're reaching out, you're getting coverage, people aren't writing you back. That's going to happen. All right, but have you written a press release? Remember I talked about writing that article for them, writing that press release in a way that it's a story? Okay, you have your press release, turn it into a blog post. Put some money behind it on Facebook as far as an ad, or, boost it and that sort of thing. Start your own blog on your website. Start your own podcast and develop content, because this content can be repurposed and put on a major site. It's still valuable. It still has value. Now you could take that content, the blogs that you're writing that may be housed on your website, on your Facebook, or any of those things, and then guest blog. You may not get your article in the Washington Times or in the city paper, but you may get it on a local blog. Micro influence is powerful, because think about this. Think about a time when you've seen somebody with something really cute. Like, you guys probably like my bow. And you're like, hey, where'd you get that? And your friend is like, oh, I got it at Marshall's, and you're running to Marshall's to go get that thing. That's micro influence. I have sold a lot of clothes over time. And if anybody out there, you've recommended, oh, I like your mower. Where'd you get the mower? And they go get it based on your word. And so, check out these smaller outlets, these smaller blogs and podcasts and radio shows, because they have audiences. And people just kind of want to go to the top right away. Public relations is a long game. I don't do contracts under 6 months, because it takes time, especially if you're coming out the gate and nobody's ever heard of you. I meet people who never done anything and want to be on Fox 5 tomorrow and want to pay me $3 to do it. Let me explain some things to you. That's never going to be the way. Public relations is expensive because the software is expensive. You saw all that I told you you had to do for one email. Imagine having to do 100 of those in a week. Software is $5,000 to get people's contact information. You Google these things. It is a very expensive business. That's why I want you to have these tools, because you may not be there yet to outsource this, but you can still get it done for yourself. So the DIY, submitting to the, writing your own blogs and submitting those to guest blogs, that content can be repurposed or syndicated and sent out in other places. But I did want to share with you some resources, some free resources to get journalist information. So on this slide, all of these sites have information about journalists. Some of them have paid service, paid subscriptions. Some of them have a free service. One of the most popular is Harrow. Number 5, help a reporter out. Isn't that cute? So what they do is, once you sign up for their newsletter, they send you can sign up basically by category or industry and that sort of thing, but they send you media requests all day long. You open it, there's a link, and it's this person saying, hey, I'm looking for a financial expert to comment on what's going to happen financially once, businesses get back together after the pandemic. And you're like, oh, I'm a finance expert. And it's just a ton of requests from reporters. So sign up for Harrow. Source Bottle is another great one right behind Harrow. But check these out, because there are avenues for you to get. Now, you can't search these for free to get their contact information, but these are asks specific. So you can go to your industry and you can see where people are requesting media interviews. And then you respond, hey, with what? The pitch I told you about. So now you have more information, because like I said, they're very specific about what they want. So you answer specifically, follow directions. I'm going to give you some directions when we close out here to practice, because if you don't follow directions, you're more likely not to get the opportunity. Because like I said, busy people, so they want you to, hey, just do this so we can get this done. So follow the directions, send them your press release, your press kit, and go and wait for your response. And don't harass. Remember, follow up once or twice, but don't harass. And I want to say this to piggyback on that tidbit about fact checking. Your social media presence and all that kind of stuff, marketing, advertising, brand management, communications, all of these things are family. They're like cousins, and they all play their own role, but they work together in unity to make your whole marketing strategy just amazing. But don't think that just because you're dealing with someone on TV that your social media won't be connected. So if you are saying one thing on social media and then saying another thing over here on press, they can find that out. So make sure your social media looks good. And so, here's some tips on elevating that, creating some partnerships, having good posts, sharing feedback, being engaging. So when people come and check out your social media, they say, hey, this is someone we do want to talk to, and be creative. Make sure your social media profiles are complete, because they check your followers to see, okay, if he has 30,000 followers, likely maybe 50% of them people might tune in. So they're going to get a lot of traffic because of you. So they're looking over there, and they're also kind of, combing, because think about this. If you are on your social media being xenophobic, sexist, racist, etc., and they're just sort of like lifting you up on a morning show, that's going to backfire on them. So your credibility, your reputation impacts them as well. So just keep that in mind. Now we have about 20 minutes left. I would like to open that for questions, and then I will tell you guys about the giveaway. But first, I wanted to say that press release template, we're going to send that out to everyone who registered for this webinar, because we have your email addresses. And feel free to share it with whomever you want to share it with. As far as the giveaway is concerned, I'm going to ask that question when we close out. I'm going to give you some directions, and that giveaway is media lists. Like I said, these things cost money, and so I'm going to pull some media lists for you. I'm going to give you access to 3 media lists: NBC, ABC, whoever that is, whoever gets the answer right to that question. So so make sure you stay to the end so you can get a chance to win those media lists. But let's open the floor up to questions if there are any.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. That was incredible.
You're welcome.
We have been getting a lot of love on social media, and we do have some questions. In fact, we have some anonymous questions. So someone said, I reached out to media and I'm pretty sure they spam me. How can I repair that relationship?
Ooh, okay. So if there's someone specific, that you've done that to, it's okay to kind of, and especially if you sell cupcakes, I would add that. But it's okay to reach out and put in your subject, because obviously we read subject lines, and maybe say, I would like to apologize. Something that would make this person open it up. So if you have spam, just admit where you were wrong. Say, hey, I'm a novice here. I was very passionate about getting my story covered. I have some understanding now about how it should go forward, and I just wanted to come back and let you know that. And keep it short and sweet, because it sounds like you want to take an action to repair. So I would do something like that.
Awesome. Someone else is asking, is most earned media about brand awareness? I sell a sporting goods product.
Yes, it's about brand awareness, but like we said, there's certain hooks and angles within that brand. So you sell sporting goods, right? Right now, I went out and had to buy my son some soccer equipment because his soccer season was canceled. So I purchased some new goals, some cones, and some soccer balls. And I've been taking him to the park with his cousin, and we're having our own soccer camp. It's horrible. It's horrible, but he's active, and and he's having fun. So you're selling sporting goods. So right now, I would be kind of talking about putting out a list of my products that can, to replace summer camp for parents who are looking for things to keep their kids active. They can have their own summer camp. And you can, put together a story and a pitch to say, hey, this is for parents looking for, activities for their kids this summer, DIY summer camp. So yeah, your brand, sporting goods, yeah, but what inside of that will have value for their audience? And that would have value for me, because I was looking for it. Where were you when I needed it?
Awesome. Shani is asking on Facebook, Haro blew my life. Is there any way to narrow down all of the emails you receive?
Regarding, can you repeat that question?
It says Haro, Haro.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, okay. When you go back to your subscription list, so there's 2 things I've done. Well, one, you could set up an email address that only it gets Haro. I had to do that because years ago, before I started doing it, professionally, I always worked in my career, but on my side business, I began to use Haro, and it was just filling up my email box. So one, if you're not interested in all of their categories, only sign up for the newsletter that's related to a specific category, because they have them broken down. Also, you can set up depending on your email client, you can set up folders that, send those emails right to a specific folder. And then the other suggestion is to set up harrowinbox@gmail.com and then subscribe your newsletters to that email address so that only Haro emails go there.
Awesome. We do have an anonymous one. It says, I'm trying to get on Ellen. Any tips?
Hey, well, what are you doing? Is your story compelling? Is Ellen interested in it? But the best way to get on Ellen would be, because she normally, people only see the viral guest, but the person who they saw all over social media, and then she gave them $10,000. But what's your story? If your story is really important, they can be pitched to, and you can't find Ellen like her contact information very easily, but you can dig. You can dig into the producers that work for Helen. You can do Ellen. You can dig into who runs the show, and look on LinkedIn, because Ellen, it's a job, and people have their jobs, up there on their LinkedIn pages. So you want to find a contact in production and that sort of thing, and then put together a really good package. I hope you have something to sell. You don't want to just hang out with Ellen, So put together a really good package, and you can get on Ellen.
Awesome.
I would include video with Ellen. Want to add that?
Perfect. Now, about video, do you have any tips on how to create a compelling video?
Sure. Well, one of the things is having I'll say an elevator pitch, but that just basically means a short, succinct version of your brand story. So, and they call it an elevator pitch because, it's like you should be able to say everything in the time it takes to ride an elevator down with someone, because that might be about the only amount of time you have with them. So if you're putting together and, it's just you and your phone and you're DIYing it, write an outline, start an outline of your story. Start with a topic, like your mission. What do I want to get across here? Under that, pull out 3 to 4 points that you feel will help drive that original point home. And then put down at the bottom of that your conclusion statement. And this is how you can write a small, brief paragraph on your brand story. And if this video is just you talking and telling that story, that's fine. But if you want to put some visuals or, some things of you moving around, that works too. But you want to make sure you're hitting points and just being on point. Here's what I'm talking about. Here's what I do. Here, these 3 points drive that home. This confirms that. And then in conclusion, this is my call to action, my CTA. This is what I want from this conversation. You have to say, I'd love to be able to talk to you further. I'd love to join you on your show. I would love to come to your event. You have to close with what you want.
Awesome. So another question, is it ill-advised to approach journalists in person at an event?
No, networking is never ill-advised unless how you do it, is ill-advised, So normal people, if you see a journalist talking to someone, don't interrupt or whatever. You see them shoveling food in their mouth, don't interrupt. Just like a celebrity might feel, interrupted. But if you see a good moment to go ahead and approach them, absolutely. If they're your favorite journalist, Allison Seymour, listen. When I met Allison, I acted a complete fool because I'm a huge fan of hers, and I didn't meet her in a capacity as a publicist. I met her as just out somewhere, and I was so excited to meet her, and I let her know that, and we kind of casually chatted, and I closed to let her know I was a publicist, and she was like, really? She was like, oh, because normally people kind of go into, how can I get guests on? But I was just talking to her as a person because I just adore her. So approach them like a normal person, introduce yourself, try to exchange cards, don't immediately start asking for anything, but say, hey, I'd love to be in touch in the future. Exchange cards so that they have yours, because muscle memory is a thing. If they glance at that, they might remember your logo, your brand. And so definitely approach them, exchange cards, and go on your way. It's absolutely fine to do.
Awesome. One more question. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn as a publicist?
The lesson that took me, okay, the nose. That getting a no was not a sign that, I'm doing a horrible job or my client's thing isn't good and that sort of thing, because you start to take it personal. You could, depending, but I talk to a lot of my peers, and you have to steel yourself because it can affect you. I don't know who could hear no all day and feel good about that. Or not just no responses. Because, I remember, for certain projects, I could send out 50 pitches in a day and not hear anything back. And not hear anything back. And then I'm supposed to still feel good about myself, right? So it's.
Oh no, you're muted. Kelly, the audio went out. Actually, we lost the audio. So if you can just give us a second while we fix it. Okay, perfect. Can you repeat that last part, please?
Sure. So basically what I'm saying, I kind of steel myself, and being able to accept no's and PR helped me be able to accept no's in other areas of my life, personal areas, just, if it can't happen, it can't happen. I'm all about action. Is there anything I can do to change this? No? Okay. And I move on. And that's all I can do. I can't sit in it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Any final words of advice?
Yes. Go forth and do. Because here's the thing, like I say, I am on a lot of webinars. I still take them. I'm always taking a class or something like that. But what happens is when people get information and they sit on it, oftentimes they don't lose it, they forget it, and all that kind of stuff, and you don't take any action, and towards the thing that you want to do. So I challenge you to go ahead and when you get this press release template, practice something. Even if you don't send it out, or do something towards this, go start to build your media list. Start to put together a list of things that you can market or get stories for, so that you can start to, build those things up over time. Start to what angles or hooks about my business are newsworthy, and start to write out that list. Just do something toward this. That's the thing I want to say, because that's valuable to you. It's not, the only person you're hurting is yourself when you don't do these things. But when you put something toward it, the only person you're helping is yourself. So want to say that. Oh, and track, your metrics, because if you do get picked up somewhere, keep your media clippings, all of those things. If you send out a press release, you will get metrics back or analytics back from the newswire. Keep those things tracked to see how your things are working, to see, the reach that they have. Is this a good time to bring up the contest?
Yes.
Okay. So, party people, a PR is just one capacity of a service that I offer, but I'm a marketer, and you don't really find a lot of people who cross those lines. And so, marketing is like we said, everything, was cousins. Marketing is like the umbrella, and everything kind of comes under that. And so, I want to know, now this is what you have to do. You have to go to my website, kellymavenmedia.com. You have to go to my contact page, and you have to send me the answer to this question via that contact form. The subject should read virtual bites and street entrepreneurs. Virtual bites and street entrepreneurs. And the question is, what is the number one marketing tactic? What is the number one form of marketing? There is the number one marketing tactic that everyone in the world uses. It is the oldest marketing tactic. It will never, ever go away. I said it in here without saying it in here. What is the number one marketing tactic? If you get that answer right, I'm going to give it to the first person who emails me correctly. We'll set up a call, we'll get on the phone, and I find out what email list you need, and we'll pull those email lists and get you all those reporters' names and contact information.
Awesome. Remember, you have to do it through the contact list, not through the comments.
Not through the comments. Go to my website, Kelly Maven Media. Go to the contact page. The subject in the email should read virtual bites and street entrepreneurs. And the question is, what is the number one marketing tactic? I'll add this because this might be helpful when you Google search it. What is the number one and oldest marketing tactic?
Awesome. I want to thank you so much for being here with us and for sharing your talents with other entrepreneurs.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much. And I also want to thank Pod TV Digital, who develops strategies and content to increase engagement and brand positioning. We could not have done this without them, and we are so grateful that they were on board for this workshop. We have many more workshops, but before I let you go, I just want to tell you very briefly who Street Entrepreneurs is and what we do. So we are an accelerator, and we care about people solving problems they know firsthand. We look for people who are a little bit crazy, and by that I mean people who see a world that doesn't exist and are intent on bringing it to life. And they have grit, and they will try as often as they need to do that. We provide three services. The first is accessible education. Thank you to those who donated to this workshop. It helps us keep this work going. We also used a portion of the funds during the quarantine to support entrepreneurs who did not qualify for federal aid related to COVID. Um, and That is the first thing we do, education. And the second thing is mentorship. We connect people to mentors and coaches via our talent exchange workshops. If you're interested in being a part of that, please apply on our website at streetentrepreneurs.org. And finally, we host something called Street Pitch, which happens after all the cohorts select the most promising venture. And Street Pitch is something like American Idol meets Shark Tank, where the people watching vote with their money on their favorite entrepreneurs. And that way, our entrepreneurs can get a little bit of startup capital. And for the audience, it's the first time they are investors. We are able to do a lot of the work we do thanks to the support of the Deputy Mayor of Planning and Economic Development in Washington, D.C., and we're really grateful to them. And that is us. If you have any questions, please contact us. If you know anyone who can benefit from workshops on marketing, accounting, sales, please point them to our Facebook page and tell them to apply for our founder retreats. And I will see you all very soon. Rita, would you like to say anything before we go?
She's muted.
Oh,
Thank you. I just think that this was really a fantastic way to kick off this virtual learning bite series. I'm really excited. Kelly, thank you so much. And Juliana, again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I think that there were a lot of great nuggets here that were shared, and I'm hoping that the audience will walk away with actionable tools, like Kelly said, that they can implement quickly and help to amplify their brand. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Take care.
Ciao.